Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
My name is Sanal Kumar. I'm running a YouTube channel named Trainer Sanal Kumar only. So, I think your name. Welcome,
David.
Welcome, David Paul, Rajiv Gandhi Institute of Youth Development, Sri Perumbudur.
Thank you so much. Nice meeting you.
Thank you, sir. Now, can you tell something about yourself, sir?
I'm David Paul. I have a master's degree in psychology, and I've completed recently my PhD and yet to be conferred. I work as a training officer in the Rajiv Gandhi National Institute of Youth Development at Sri Perumbudur, which is a premier organization of the Union Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, Government of India. I've been associated with this present organization for over 16 years.
So now you are a doctor, David Paul.
No, the degree has not been conferred yet.
Okay. So is there any specific reason for choosing psychology?
Yes, because I did not want to take up mathematics as a subject for study after my plus 2 because I had a little struggle in mathematics. Therefore, I wanted something which is unconventional. I wanted to explore into something which gives me some utility for my day-to-day life. Therefore, I chose psychology.
So, if you didn't choose psychology, which subject you would choose?
Actually, I got admitted in chemistry in a illustrious college in Chennai.
Okay.
Then for a few days I went to the college, then felt that that's not good for me, and therefore I chose the second option. I got into BSc Physics, again in a very good college. Then again I went to the laboratory and saw that that's not my part. So therefore I quit that also, and there was a veranda admission, and I met the principal during that time, and then he said you have history, anthropology and psychology. So this field psychology sounded something different to me. Then I immediately told you admit me in psychology, and the principal was laughing at me and gave me a little funny look, but nevertheless I thought I should do something different.
Okay. So before joining psychology, what do you think about, what you know about psychology?
I never knew about psychology as a systematic discipline of behavioral science. All that I knew was psychologists deal with mad people.
Okay.
That's what the understanding I had.
So you choose a subject for earn money, or say for a particular job, for a particular passion?
It was my passion actually. When the principal told me psychology, so that caught my attention, and I started exploring what it was, and I discovered that it's dealing with behavioral science. Therefore, I wanted to specialize in that.
So you are entered into a passionate job.
Yes.
Super. So how you feel after entering this passionate job?
See, the studies were pretty interesting, but at the end of my undergraduate study, after I studied abnormal psychology, the symptoms that I studied, most of them I could see in me, but that created a little fear that I am having some psychological disturbances, and I got it clarified from my professors. They said there are various criteria for abnormality, so I have to read that. So once I went through that, then I got it clarified.
First you start from your own personality.
Yes.
Okay. So when you come to psychology, everyone think that you can cure so many psychological problems and like
See,
that. There are various options, psychiatry and psychology. What do you think about? How you can
people
explain
in general, people get confused with a psychiatrist and a psychologist. Psychiatrist is a medical professional by education and training who can prescribe medicines. Wherein a psychologist can deal only with psychotherapeutic techniques, which does not involve any medicine. Medication is no part of psychology. Right? So that has to be clarified in the minds of general public. And the other second question people usually ask is, you are a psychologist, you'll be able to read my behavior, you know what I'm thinking, you know what I am. So they think it's like a astrologer telling what you are. So usually psychology is not like that. Of course, body language is important for understanding the inner behavior, but it's not like how people think. We in psychology use systematic psychometric tools and assessment techniques wherein we assess the human attributes and behaviors.
What are the challenges you faced in this psychology in your field or in your job?
After I completed my post graduation, then I did not have any option of choosing a specialization. Because of a variety of reasons. Number one being my family reasons, I have to support them economically.
Yeah.
So therefore I was not able to take up my higher studies. And if at all I had to take up higher studies, options were available only in the field of human resources development or applied fields of psychology. But my passion was in clinical psychology, which was a very costlier program and which had a lot of competition. But I couldn't spend much time on those programs, so I could not take up those programs. But the real challenge after I completed my post-graduation was to secure a gainful employment. Having studied psychology, I had a passion to teach or engage in some applied field of psychology, but getting a job relevant to that field was a little difficult. So that was the biggest challenge.
So if you are now, how you feel now you are a successful person?
Yes, to some extent I would say, because once I completed my studies, I was hunting for some jobs. At that particular point of time, I didn't know of the job hunting strategies. Neither did I have strong contacts for referrals. So that was one drawback that I had. And nowadays you have a lot of information technology tools wherein you can source out your passion fields, or you can apply online and you can get these opportunities. But way back 20 years back, these facilities were not available, so it was only through word of mouth references. So I got my mark sheets and straight away went to my teachers. Now that I've studied, what do you want me to do? I asked my head of the department. Then luckily he had 2 or 3 options with him. There were 3 or 4 institutions asking for candidates to be referred to their institutions. So one was this National Institute for the Visually Handicapped, which was at Punamalli. They wanted a research associate with psychology background or social work background. So my professor said, you go and approach them. But the communication that I got from them indicated that the last date was already over. But on the way to that institution, I thought whether would it be redundant for me to go and approach them, because the last date for interviews is already over. So whether will this make any difference? But still, I thought this sounds something different, visually impaired. So let me go and see what the institution is doing for the visually impaired. That was my intention of going to that organization, and I met the personal secretary to that regional director of that institution, and then I said I'm approaching them at the instructions of my professor, and that lady said already we have shortlisted the candidates, but nevertheless if you have your CV you can give me. Then I gave her a copy of my CV. Immediately she took it to her director, and they saw my CV. I was asked to wait in the lobby. So after half an hour I was called by her. She said, whether will you be able to take up an interview right away? Then I said, I don't have any testimonials or anything documents, but oral interviews I can give it, but if you want documents then I would require some time. So I bought some time from them, and I was interviewed by the director. Like how we are sitting, there was a just table in between. So that person appeared very normal to me. After about 45 minutes of initial interview, I discovered that he did not have sight. Although his eyeballs, everything were normal, he was a visually impaired person by birth. So then again I was asked to wait for some time. and they called me and they had some discussion with their administrative people and so on, and then the PS2 director told I'm wanted to appear for the next round of interview. Then that director asked, given a chance, this is the project, so how will you go about? Give us the steps. So I was just given 2 or 3 minutes to think over, and then I delineated the phases of that research project, and I told them how I will, as a fresher, would like to take that project forward. And I was asked some questions about finances, like how you will manage your finances. I initially told them that, look, if you are able to support me, I can do this. Otherwise, there are various international organizations which we can approach. So for the social cost, they will also support. So these kind of responses attracted them. And already there was a shortlisted candidate for that position. And now I am in a better position for them. So they said, we will consider you, but we have to first speak to the shortlisted candidate again, and then we will get back to you. So this was the first experience that I had. After about a week, I got a call from them. Those days we only used to have this landline. So my mother picked up, and she was not sure who was talking, and it was that regional director who was speaking. So my mother called me and said, there's some call for you. So I attended that call. It was that director. Then he told, we are happy about your abilities, so we want you to join immediately without any delay. It was about 12 o'clock in the noon that I received the call. Then I asked him, how soon should I join? What is your expectation? He said, immediately, even in a few hours if you join, then we can take the project forward. So the very same day, in about an hour's time, I went and joined that organization.
So that's a very successful story. Using your skills actually, right? Because of your skills, you have more confidence. You never depend on the certain case.
See, whatever you have, you should be confident enough in expressing to people. And you cannot just say whatever you want to say, but you should be very logical. You should be very realistic in what you tell. Okay. That is more important. Once you bluff something and you are not able to perform it, then you are a failure.
So, when you face any challenges?
Certainly, in the field of visual impairment, that was my first employment. There I worked in that institution for about 6.5 years. I took up research projects for identification of self-employment opportunities for the visually impaired people, both less educated and people who are highly educated who are visually impaired, both persons with low vision and for persons with total loss of sight. So that was a big challenge because we work as a able-bodied people with full sight, we are able to perform. So I had to simulate myself in every situation that I don't have sight, how difficult it would be to perform a particular activity. So I had to break down each task. We call that as task analysis. So I had to do this task analysis in the lens of a visually impaired person. And I also had to see what difficulties a person with total loss of sight would encounter. That was the biggest challenge, identifying these constraints. And the next level was to see what modifications or adaptations are required. Like we can walk on a road freely, but a person with visual disability cannot do that. There are a lot of barriers. So one has to encounter these barriers and overcome that. To overcome that, what needs to be done? What modifications or what adaptations or what assistive devices they would require? These kind of identification was a little difficult. Say for instance, when I went to BHEL or BEL or defense establishments like Midani or DRDO, there are people, visually impaired people, totally managing these CNC machines, computerized numerical control machines, and these are heavy manufacturing machines, but safety is very important. So therefore, to ensure their safety, we had to suggest to them guarding with wire mesh. For people with low vision, we had to make some shore lines with strong yellow color reflectors. So these are very simple ones. But when it comes to computer operations, there are various softwares like JAWS, Job Access with Speech, or IITM software. The IIT Madras has brought out a software, multilingual software, which is a screen reader. We can see and read the screens, but persons with visual disability cannot do that. So the screen reading softwares were helpful for them. But again, if you use a JAWS software, it is English, British, US slang. Our people will not be able to understand. So that accent neutralization, all this was required for them. But our people still felt through training it was easy, it was possible for them. So these were some of the constraints. And after that, we had trained people on various skills like stenography, shorthand. All these were in Braille. Braille typing, Braille shorthand, and normal typewriting. I learned typewriting from a visually impaired person, and I can challenge. I can type even very faster than any trained person who has trained formally in typewriting. So that is the kind of training I got from a visually impaired person. And with regard to placements, we have trained so many people. Now, what do we do with these visually impaired people? So we looked for avenues. Like there were a lot of public sector undertakings, government establishments coming out with reservations. That is in 2005. There was an act called as Persons with Disabilities Act, which was passed, which provides full participation in providing equal opportunities and rights for persons with disabilities. Reservation, 3% reservation in employment was made by the government of India. So we took this opportunity, and we are a central government organization. So our trainees are on one side. There is a little demand on the other side. So we wanted to grab this opportunity. So like a NTPC, National Thermal Power Corporation, or Naval Lignite Corporation, BHEL, BEL, the defense establishments, and particularly the nationalized banks. You would see in any of these banks or any of these organizations, stenographers, typists, computer operators who are visually impaired. So once the advertisement is on in the paper, so we keep on looking at these advertisements. Immediately I used to go to these employers, and after a period of time, these employers did not want to meet me because I will persist on them to take my candidates. So and then we told that they don't have to consider them as charity products. So we told them that we'll give them proper training. You can interview them, you can conduct skill tests, and then we trained our people on attending interviews and all these things. So they excelled very well. And more than 300 people have been placed by us in permanent jobs. So that gives us immense satisfaction.
Super. So when you face any challenges, what do you think about, what are the skills helped you to overcome these challenges?
See, number one, you should have a right attitude for people. That is, you should have empathy and passion for these kind of people, so that we can gain a livelihood easily. But for such people, it was difficult at that particular point of time. Acceptance was the problem. Like any employer will not easily accept to take a visually impaired person. Say for instance, if he incurs some injury or an accident, then they are liable for these liabilities. So that's why they try to avoid. But next, negotiation skills are very important. So you try to negotiate, you tend to be very assertive with them, but at the same time you have to have the element of empathy for them, for these kind of people also. So that was the biggest challenge, to make people accept. That was the biggest challenge.
So you are using these skills for overcome this your own challenges.
Yes.
Okay. Now you are working in Rajiv Gandhi.
Yeah. After about 6.5 years. After that, I also undertook a study, like not just placing these visually impaired people, but we should also know what has been the success rates of these visually impaired people. So we conducted a survey on about 150 visually impaired people across South India who are working in central government, state government and public sector undertakings. So that was a study on the level of job satisfaction that these visually impaired people derive from their jobs, and work efficiency, how the employer feels that these people are efficient, and what promotional prospects are available for these kind of people. So these three elements we studied, and the level of satisfaction among these people were very high because they are highly paid and they are very responsible and they are very loyal to these organizations, which gave them more sense of satisfaction at work. And the employers were very highly appreciative of their work efficiency, because we alongside conducted a lot of refresher programs, upgradation programs, computer training and so on, so which made them keep at pace with the rapid changes that happens at any workplace. So that was one path-breaking effort that we took out. And then the promotional prospects, about over 75% of the people were eligible for promotions because of their work. Whereas a few people who had associated disabilities intellectual disabilities also, that was a limiting factor for them, which they could contribute that high. So therefore promotional prospects were a little difficult for them. So after this was over, then people thought that I'm getting crazy into the field of disability rehabilitation, so I have to settle in my life, and my parents were wanting me to take up some good job so that I can get married. And not that I couldn't get, I will not get married if I stay on to this job, but still there was a social taboo. Like I was also doing a lot of help for these kind of people, like working as a scribe and all these things. I used to read books for them. I used to teach them various subjects during my leisure time. So this is how I passed my time. And later I came across this advertisement in Rajiv Gandhi National Institute of Youth Development. As a training and placement officer in the previous organization, I thought I can use these skills, transfer these skills to the able-bodied people. So the interview took up was held at the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports at New Delhi, Shastri Bhavan. And when I went to the interview, I think I was the shortest and lean person there. Then there were about 5 or 6 positions available. I think 4 positions were available to be filled up. The interviews were being held for 3 or 4 days, and the day which I went, there were about roughly 200 candidates. Very highly qualified people were also there. And then when I went there, I could see a big panel, like Mr. Prithviraj Chavan, who was the former Chief Minister of Maharashtra. At that particular point of time, when I was attending the interview, he was the PMO, Prime Minister of State in the Prime Minister's office. And I had panelists like the SNBT University's Vice Chancellor, then the JNU Vice Chancellor, the Secretary of the Ministry, and the Joint Secretary. So it was a very exhaustive, tough panel. And the first level of screening went on. As you know, in any job interview, the first level of interview is, the objective is to eliminate candidates. So about half were eliminated. The second round came in. Then I spoke a little about the adaptive technologies for the visually impaired people, and that caught the attention of one person in the interview panel, who was the steering committee member of the DST, Department of Science and Technology. So he insisted that I should go for the next level. Maybe I knew it after that, after the interview is over. So in the second level, I was given a written test. So I was given an essay to write, to delineate a roadmap of how I will use my previous learning, my subject domain expertise for the youth of the country. So this was the question. So how, like I wrote about evolving national level leaders, nation building activities, personality development, infusing life skills, instilling life skills in the young people, motivation, all these psychological elements caught the attention of the panelists there again. And then after lunch, I was asked to appear for the third round. There were minuscule size of group, the group drastically reduced to about 15 to 16 people. And in the third level, I was asked to develop a training proposal, like to capture the. Then I knew I have to talk to them about the entire training cycle. How do I go about mapping the training needs to the delivery and follow-up of the training process. So the entire process I captured. That was very interesting for them. And in psychology, as you know, we deal with the learning theories. So these learning theories I blended with the training cycle. So that caught the attention of the panelists. And then final round of interview was the acceptance. Like we would put you in difficult situations. Would you still be able to work? Then adaptability. This is an important skill. So that fetched me this job. And after I took up this job, our institute also expanded its functions. So there were a lot of new courses introduced. So I was one of the lead members in that group and was instrumental in framing the syllabi for MA Career Counseling, which was one of the pioneering programs in the entire country and even in the South Asia on career counseling. So the entire syllabus, all the requirements we did, and we ran about 6 batches of training this program. Now it has been expanded to MSc Counseling Psychology. So I've been teaching counseling, career counseling, psychopathology, clinical medicine, and so on.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experience with us.
So anything that you would, now I specialize in career guidance and counseling. In case if you would like to get any details about the upcoming careers or if you want to know the career fields in the world of work, or if you would like to get yourself assessed, then you can always approach us. We as a team can help you.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.